G'day everyone, welcome back to beautiful Bandhavgarh National Park. Actually quite cool Bandhavgarh National Park today. This is going to be my ultimate guide to visiting Bandhavgarh National Park. It's our fourth visit here, so we think we've kind of got the lay of the land. So let's start off with getting here. Now the hub to get here is going to be Jabalpur, and from Jabalpur you're going to do a 3-hour transfer by road. The roads are pretty good to get to your lodge in Bandhavgarh, roughly 3 hours. And your lodge or your tour agency will organise those transfers for you. Obviously if you're local you can drive here. These are for people that are a bit further afield. So you can come by train. We've done it once from Agra, overnight train. Once was enough for us, even in the first class cabin. But it's a cultural experience. Most people will come by plane. Plane tickets are quite cheap here. I was only looking at the SpiceJet flights a couple of weeks ago again, and it was around 90 US return to come from Delhi to Jabalpur for an adult. So pretty good value. No reason not to fly, really, unless you really want to take the train. The two airlines that you're going to be looking at to get here are SpiceJet and Indigo. Just watch out for their baggage allowances, because check-in is only 15 kilos for both of those airlines. If you want extra carry-on, you can pay for it. When I was looking at the Indigo counter on the way down here, because we've only flown with SpiceJet before, they say 7 kilos, like a carry-on bag, and 3 kilos of personal item. But read the fine print for yourself as well. Now currently there's direct flights daily from Delhi and Mumbai. There's also limited weekly services from Pune and Kolkata at the moment. So it could be a Monday, Wednesday, Sunday. But check that out. So limited services for those guys. There are going to be a couple of other, I was told there's going to be a couple of other bigger cities here that are going to start flying direct into Jabalpur. Excuse me. But seeing it hasn't started yet, I won't say anything in case it doesn't actually happen. But there is potential for that. They're building a brand new airport at Jabalpur, should be finished in a year or so. We're still going to the old Bangor airport. The new one looks like a spaceship in comparison. Safari times. Now they change from winter to summer, so winter, December, January, February, I guess November, they'll include that in those time frames. So in winter time they leave a little later because it's cooler in the morning and start a little earlier in the afternoon. And they go for about 5 from your lodge to back for about 5.5 hours in the morning, and then about 3.5 hours total in the afternoon in winter. A little bit shorter in summer. They leave later in the morning and then, earlier in the morning and come back earlier, but it's like 5:30 you leave your lodge, and then back around 10:30, and then in the afternoon you leave at 4 and get back in at about 6:30. So a little bit shorter times. Has a lot to do with the heat. You can book a whole day safari in the park. There's some people we've seen that have done that. It's very, very expensive. What does it give you access to? As I said, in winter time we're almost doing 8 hours, 9 hours worth of safari, say 8 hours out in the field. What it gives you is access to all the restricted zones. So for tourists, the general tourism in the core zones and in the buffer zone, there are maybe 10 or 15% of the park is actually you can access. Sorry about the wind, I know it's quite windy today. About 10%, 15% you can access. The rest they leave it wild so the animals can get some peace and quiet from the crowds. But you can book a whole day. Now the thing is, even if you're booking a whole day, we keep running into the same people doing the whole day, because one of the things you rely on here in Bandhavgarh is word of mouth. You pass other cars. What have you seen? What have you heard? They get on phones and communicate. So you've got more eyes in the field if you're not doing the day tour. So a lot of the time we see the people doing the full day thing, and they're just following the people doing the morning and afternoon drives because there's more people to communicate about what's going on. Book early for the best zones. So if you think you're coming to any of the parks in India, there's only a certain amount of vehicles that can go into each zone. So in Bandhavgarh we have 3 gates for 3 different zones. And the new regulation is only 25 vehicles allowed in each zone. So what your lodge or tour agency or your driver may know is during the monsoon season they get a bit of the lay of the land where all the tigers have moved around to, settled into before the safari season starts. And if you book last minute, A, it can be difficult to even get a safari when it gets really busy, and B, because everyone's trying to book the best zones first, those 25 seats per morning and afternoon drive get booked out quicker. So just think of that. It's always best to book earlier. So if you're coming in February, March, April, you want to get it booked in, speak to your lodge at least by kind of the end of October, beginning of November. It's always busier on the weekends, no matter what time, because a lot of day trippers or weekend trippers come from different cities around India to come here for a weekend. Most popular months are March and April, and that's the peak season. Anywhere in the world where you have a dry season like they do here, when the waterholes shrink as it gets dry, it gets hotter. It's only natural for animals to gravitate more towards the waterholes. They've got to come more and more, so they'll be situated closer to the waterholes. So peak season is when it gets hotter. So March, April, May, it's already by March you're looking at high 30s, early 40s. April, you can have many days in a row over, I'm talking Celsius, over 40, so over 110. By the time it gets to May and June, I think you've got to be a masochist, even though it could be recommended you come here because they want to get to the water even more. Especially, obviously, I'm talking tigers as well. And they love to swim. Tigers and jaguars are the only 2 big cats that love swimming that I can think of. So they love to come down to the water and play in the water when it's really, really hot. So peak season, March, April. When you get into May, you're really talking consistent boiling hot weather. So consider that. Days closed. Look out for days closed in any park you go to. In Bandhavgarh, it's Wednesday afternoon. So if you're only doing a 4-day trip, look at maybe doing, a Thursday to Sunday or Thursday to Monday, whatever it is, to avoid the Wednesday where you can't go into anything except for the buffer zone. The buffer zone's open all year round, even in monsoon. Not sure how you can even go around in those muddy, sopping wet roads and even move. The other thing is in March, sometime during March, and it changes the dates during March, there's a holiday called Holi, H-O-L-I, and it goes for a week, but one of those days during that week, the park, again, except for the buffer zone, all the core zones here are closed for the full day. So look for that holiday if you're going to book, because you won't be able to go in any of the core zones on safari during that one day during holiday, which is like a national public holiday. Moving on. Sorry, I've just got some notes here. So monsoon season, that goes from July through to October. No one can go into the core zones at all. Basically, they're all closed, shut down, and I'm not sure why you'd want to be here during monsoon anyway. Tipping. Okay, so the way it works here is you've got a driver and a local guide. Now the driver owns the car, but he's also a tracker, he's also a guide, he's also a naturalist, and then you've got a local guide. And it's one way to keep people employed and engaged in wildlife and conserving wildlife. And they're rotators, so every time you get a vehicle, you go to this one main office, and then a local guide will jump in. Now, you don't have to tip if you don't want to, if they're absolutely not contributing at all. What we do, if they're okay and look to be contributing to the guiding and the tracking and giving you information about the wildlife, we normally tip per drive for 2 of us, 200 rupee. That's our rule. I think we read it somewhere that was along those lines. So 200 rupee for if they're good and seem to be really contributing and really helping and they're engaging, 300. The drivers are also on a rotational system. You can ask for a specific driver if you know who you want as well, and have them for the whole trip. But normally we would double the tip for the driver. So if we're giving 200 for the local guide, it'd be 400 for the driver, 300 for the local guide, 600 for the driver per drive. That's for 2 people. That's just a guideline. It's up to you. We have a private driver for the whole time we're here, so we tip him accordingly. We'll give him a bit extra because he's a great driver and it's worthwhile. BYO chiropractor. Now the roads here are extremely bumpy. Now you might have been to East Africa before, South Africa, Botswana. We've done all those. So these were, except for the drive between Arusha and into the Serengeti, which again is just ridiculous, the rutting in the road. But your general driving around looking for wildlife here, I liken it, and I'm kind of exaggerating to prove a point, I liken it to sitting on a jackhammer and having one of those old 60s, 70s flab blaster things with the belt around your waist wobbling you around. We actually grab a pillow from here, like one of those, just one from the couch here, and just sit on. Gives 8 hours of doing this, banging them on these roads. Just be aware of that. It's pretty relentless, the bouncing around, and they love a speed hump in town. So once you think you've got it over and done with out in the park, you'll go over like 10, 15 speed humps coming back from the gate to your lodge. Dust. Now you'll see, right, these are mandatory. Bring one of these. Now when we first got here in winter, there wasn't as many cars, and we're on the weekend, and we go, oh, it's not as dusty as what I remember last time. Trust me, when there's a few vehicles around, especially if everyone's tearing to a tiger sighting, dust will fly everywhere. In your mouth, up your nose. If you're not wearing one of these things, it'll cover all your stuff, all your gear. If you've got good camera equipment, take anything you can wrap around to cover it up. Very dusty. Bring your antihistamines if you've got a dust allergy, that's for sure. The Bandhavgarh traffic jam, especially in peak season when you get 20, 25 vehicles. There is a grapevine here. If you see a tiger, I guarantee you, like nothing, another 20 vehicles are going to be there. Everyone's jockeying for position. Everyone's pulling up right in front of you as you're about to take a photo. And I'm sure our vehicle's trying to do the same. It's just the nature of it. But get ready for it. It can be frustrating. Everyone's doing it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but they know their clients have come to see tigers, and they're going to do whatever it takes to get their vehicle in the best position. It's maddening, it's frustrating, but everyone's doing it, including our vehicle. There is a, I'll say this, as people that are wildlife photographers, we are very conscious of people behind us. So if we have a sighting and we are in a prime position, we'll take our photos and move on so someone can look in. Okay. Some people will just literally sit there and hog it. Crazy, but it's a thing here. Take time to smell the roses. It's not all just about tigers. All the zones here look different. It's a small park, but you go in there, the landscape, the way the trees are, everything else is different in the different zones. So every now and again, during the mad rush to try to find tigers, take a bit of time to take in the atmosphere. The parks here really are the Jungle Book come to life. A very special atmosphere that gets right under your skin if you take time just to sit back every now and again, take a deep breath and take in the atmosphere. There are restrooms in every zone in the park, and you stop there for your morning break, but it's normally a fair way in, so you might be out for 3.5, 4 hours before you have that restroom break. You can always ask your driver to go there if you're really busting. And they've actually put in some, so instead of going 4 years ago, 2019, prior to the pandemic, some of the rest stops were literally a tarp that you went behind. Now they've actually built new restrooms. I'm not saying they're immaculately clean all the time, but they're a huge step up from what they used to be. But there are restrooms in every one of the zones here. Winter versus summer. Okay, it's been a lot cooler. We've never been in February before, always March, April. And we kind of got a gauge from our lodge, our resort owner here, about what the temps are going to be like. And I can tell you this morning was literally uncomfortably cold. Now they'll give you blankets, as many as you want, but get ready for layers. Most people would have a top, one jacket, another jacket. I'll have a beanie, gloves, this thing. Get ready to layer in winter. Again, this morning was particularly uncomfortable. There's a cold wind that's come through, but most people have layers, so get rid of it. In summer, honestly, the drive out, you may wear a very light jacket in the warmer months, because once it gets to March, it'll just jump right up. 7 o'clock, you're already probably hitting 30 degrees Celsius. So you just bring a jacket, and it gets blisteringly hot. So hydrate, most important, because it's a dry heat, so you don't get tempted to drink as much in a dry heat. Just keep hydrated. Plenty of sunscreen, good hat, but the days can be relentlessly hot. We've been in April and we've had days where it was 40 plus, so over 110 Fahrenheit, day after day, up to the high 40s. But it's also prime time for sightings. Food. Hope you like curry. Hope you like Indian food. I'm sure a lot of you do. They cater for all your dietary requirements. Obviously, this is vegetarian, vegan heaven here in India, because I have it here and I'm not a vegetarian, and it's great. The way they can make, at least for me, vegetarian food interesting all the time, where you don't even necessarily feel like meat. But the mainstay is probably chicken here for the meat that you get. But hope you like curry. For a lot of people, by the time you get home, you're going to be sick of curry, and a week later you're going to be hankering for what they give you here. So meal times, I said, breakfast you have out in the field, so they'll pack some snacks and bits and pieces for you, sandwiches, so about 10 o'clock. Lunch is around 1:30. Dinner is somewhere between 7:30 and 8:30. Just depends, you can just ask your lodge. We do it at 7:30. We've got people here that eat at 8:30. So it's quite normal for that. Internet access. 2019, I think they put a cell tower in here. They were talking about it, somewhere in Bandhavgarh, up on the hill. Then it will depend on how close your lodge is to that tower, because it was barely dial-up speed in 2019. It'd take you 3 minutes of buffering just to load a page. I'm not saying it's worked for home speed, but it's a lot better. Where we are, we get a limited service in our room, and it just depends how many people are online using the router as to how fast it is. Sometimes they don't get it at all. Sometimes one of us gets a bit not. Here I'm getting 1, 2, 3, 4 bars here on the terrace at the roof near the router. So good enough to do emails and do some research, Google search for your next trip or anything you want to do. So for searching internet. So it's definitely improved. ATMs. Get your cash before you get here. There's one ATM in Bandhavgarh. Half the time it's not functioning at all. The other day it said it wasn't working, and it's working on Windows 7 Premium or something like that, or the electricity's down, or it's just got no cash. And we managed to get some out today, but it took us 5 days to get it. We don't use money exchanges anymore. We have an ING card, so check your card, and we don't pay fees. So even if we have a fee at the terminal, it gets reimbursed to us later on. And the exchange rate through ATMs, for us, this is personal experience. You don't have to take my word for it. Do your own research. But we use ATMs. So we actually stocked up with a bit of cash in Delhi, even though when we first arrived they didn't have any cash in the 2 ATMs. But there's workarounds. So just to know that there's that one ATM, and if you're looking for cash, you're going to get cash, get it at Mumbai, Delhi, any of the big cities before you get down here, enough to cover you. So I think I've covered off on most of it. Pretty much that's it. Now, if you've got any specific questions that I haven't covered off, send me, because there'll be some points that I've forgotten or some little detail that I haven't remembered. Feel free to send me a question in the comments. I'll be happy to answer or try and find out for you. That's my ultimate guide to coming to Bandhavgarh. Come on over, folks. It's undersubscribed by international travellers at the moment, and it's a magic place. I've been to Africa many, many times. Come on over. You'll love it. Take care, guys. Bye for now.